I'm Ibrahim Traoré, and today I'm here to speak openly. No filters, no edits, no spin. You may know me as a young military leader. You might have heard people call me a radical or anti-Western. But today, I stand before you with just one truth. I'm here to uncover the lies, the stereotypes, and the distorted stories that have been told about Africa for decades. This time, you can't silence me. You can't cut the broadcast or turn off the cameras. That world is gone. Millions of people can now hear what I have to say directly and clearly, without media manipulation. I'm 34 years old. My entire life, I've been shown a version of Africa that was hopeless. Starving children, war, drought, disease. That was the only Africa we saw on TV, a place of misery and chaos. We grew up believing it. We even felt ashamed of who we were. But as I got older, I began to learn the truth. I read, I studied, I asked questions, and I saw that what we were told about Africa was never the full story. It was a narrative created and pushed by others, a story meant to control how the world sees us and how we see ourselves. Ask yourselves, how has the Western media portrayed Africa? Have you ever seen a major headline about African innovation, growth, or leadership? When has the New York Times or The Guardian highlighted Rwanda's tech progress? Or Ethiopia's success in reforesting its land? Have they ever praised Botswana's democratic achievements or Kenya's booming startup scene? Rarely, if ever, because a strong, successful Africa doesn't fit their agenda. If we're not suffering, how can they justify interference? If we're not struggling, how can they look down on us? Let me give you some hard facts. Africa holds 70% of the world's cobalt. Your phones, laptops, and electric cars can't function without it. It mostly comes from Congo, where most people can't even afford those very devices. We have 90% of the planet's platinum, used in everything from electronics to medical tools. Yet South Africans still face high unemployment. 30% of global gold comes from countries like Mali and Ghana, but our communities remain poor. Africa supplies 65% of the world's diamonds, but the miners earning this wealth often live on just $1 a day. And we hold 35% of the world's uranium, powering cities like Paris, while our own villages live in darkness. So instead of asking why Africa is poor, maybe the world should ask, why are the richest lands on earth filled with the poorest people? How can a continent so rich remain so poor? Here's a simple truth. Colonialism didn't end. It just changed form. In the past, foreign powers invaded Africa, ruled directly, and took what they wanted. Today, they don't need soldiers. Now, they use companies, contracts, and loans. They used to control us with guns. Now, it's done with bank agreements. They used to steal openly. Now, they do it legally, on paper. Let me give you real-world examples. With real numbers, Glencore, a Swiss mining giant, pulled in $256 billion in 2022 from mining cobalt in Congo. But guess how much they paid the Congolese government in taxes? Just $500 million, less than 2%. That's not fair. Rio Tinto, a British-Australian company, extracts 20 million tons of bauxite every year in Guinea. What's left behind? Pollution, cancer, and little else for the local people. Total Energies, a French oil giant, made $36 billion in 2022 alone, pumping oil from Angola, Nigeria, and Congo. Their investment in Africa? Polluted pipelines and devastated land. Anglo-American, once based in South Africa, now headquartered in London, continues to take diamonds, platinum, and iron. But in South Africa, over 6 million miners are unemployed. And these are just visible examples. Behind the scenes, it's even worse: secret deals, fake pricing tricks, money hidden in offshore accounts. Every year, $88 billion is illegally taken out of Africa. But what do you hear about in the news? Africa receives $4 billion in aid. No one mentions this truth. Africa doesn't receive aid. It gives aid. While the world focuses on hunger and poverty, behind the curtain, billions in gold, diamonds, cobalt, uranium, and oil are being moved out every single day. So how does this system work? Step 1. Corrupt our leaders, bribe them. Open secret accounts. Offer luxury lifestyles. Send their kids to elite schools abroad. Step 2. Lock in unfair deals, sign 50 or even 99-year contracts. Get tax exemptions. Avoid environmental and labor laws. Step 3. Control key infrastructure, take over ports, airports, and train lines, but only the routes that serve the mines. Ignore villages. Don't bring power to schools or clinics. Step 4. Provide private security, hire armed guards. Label protesters as threats. Silence resistance with force. Step 5. Control the narrative by off local journalists. Block critical voices. Feed selected stories to international media. This system isn't new. It's been in place for over a century. And many don't even realize it exists. Why? Because the same companies that profit from Africa are the ones funding global media, the CNNs, BBCs, and New York Times. All companies, mining giants, arms dealers, big pharma. They buy ads. They shape stories. They protect their interests. And the media, knowingly or not, helps keep the system alive. Now, I know saying this out loud is dangerous, but silence is no longer an option. Let me end with one clear example: France's grip on 14 African countries through the CFA franc. Even today, these nations are forced to use France's colonial currency. Half of their central bank reserves still sit in the French treasury, and France actually charges them negative interest, meaning these African countries are paying France to hold their own money. This isn't just unfair. It's a system designed to keep Africa down, while making the rest of the world rich. Africa loses $500 billion in resources every single year. But does that make headlines? No. Yet when France gives Africa 10 billion euros in aid, it's all over the news. Let's break it down. Britain's role. The hidden system: the UK no longer needs colonies. It uses financial tools instead. London is now the world's hub for dirty money. Through the City of London and tax havens like Jersey, Guernsey, the Cayman Islands, and the Virgin Islands, all under British control, billions stolen from Africa are stashed away out of sight. That's where Africa's wealth disappears. The U.S. presence. Military in the name of peace. The U.S. has 46 military bases across Africa, managed by AFRICOM. They say it for security, but the real goal is control over natural resources. Drones fly overhead, and surveillance tools monitor daily life. Who are they watching? Not terrorists. Often, it's African leaders who speak up or challenge the system. China's strategy. Infrastructure at a cost. China comes in offering loans and building roads, railways, and ports. They call it a win-win. But look closer. In return, China demands 99-year leases on ports, control over mining, and farmland heavy debt that's hard to repay. Just ask Sri Lanka or Zambia how that played out. Why don't you hear about this? Because most major media outlets aren't really free. They're run by billionaires. Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post. Rupert Murdoch owns Fox News, the Wall Street Journal, the Sun, and the Times. All push the same message: the West is good, everyone else is bad. The New York Times' biggest shareholder is Carlos Slim, a Mexican telecom tycoon who built his fortune through monopolies in Latin America. Now he influences one of the most respected U.S. newspapers. So ask yourself, when these billionaires own the press, can it really be independent? How Africa is reported, and who gets to tell the story? Who picks the editors? Where did they study? Always the same elite universities: Harvard, Yale, Oxford, Cambridge. And they all see the world through the same narrow lens. Now think about the journalists reporting on Africa. How many of them speak the languages of the people? Most know only English or French. But what about Swahili, Hausa, or Yoruba? How can they tell our stories if they don't even understand us? This is why the real story of Africa is rarely told. And this is how the system stays hidden, not by accident, but by design.